The Batman is a lot. Despite being WB's latest reboot of the Batman character, this movie is also a slow burn, beautifully shot crime procedural. There's a lot to love. I love following Batman track down leads and solve clues. I love Pattinson's soft-spoken, lingering, and obsessive take on the character. But the lack of action and narrative focus in the middle section slows the pacing to a halt. It's as if they had 2 hours of story and stretched an extra 45 minutes out of it, often feeling one note and monotonous at times. Gotham is just as much of a main character as Batman. This movie explores the systemic failures and corruption being passed down through the generations more than any Batman movie before it. And Bruce is not exempt from this. When I think about how this movie overcomes its flaws, I think of the new bat signal, which is formed from a bat-shaped pattern broken into the glass of the spotlight. Pattinson's Batman is a broken and shattered avatar for Gotham's scars and sins, but light shines through him nonetheless. And light shines through this new iteration of Batman, cracks and all. On the latest episode of the Professional Appreciators podcast, my friend Evan and I broke down why the Batman works and what it gets right. But it pulls it off in the end. And it does. Maybe focus on some things it gets right. Yeah. I think this movie gets a lot of things right. And
it gets a lot more things right than
and something I want to throw at you, because we didn't talk about it in our original review, I don't think, was how inexperienced and naive this Batman was.
Yeah.
And like, especially one of my favorite scenes.
Is it going to be the same as mine?
Yeah. Is it when he glides off the building for the first time and uses that wingsuit?
I was thinking the exact same thing.
And like when Pattinson gets to the top of the roof, like you can see how scared he is.
Yeah,
he has to psych himself up, and then he jumps, and it's so frenetic and chaotic, and he hits that, like, I think it's like a bridge underpass.
It's like a bridge and a bus.
Yeah.
That was the weirdest. Honestly, though.
Yeah.
The movie kind of went from like one of the most enjoyable parts to me to like, whoa, where did that come from?
Yeah.
Because he gets up to the top of the building and like looks scared, which I feel like you never see Batman looking shocked or scared.
Right.
So that was a different thing. And then he jumps off, and the most unrealistic part of the entire movie was whenever he like bounces off of a bridge in a bus and like just like lands on the ground and is like,
I like that he just like it really heightens the stakes when he's not so polished, when like, you know, like he can make just the slightest wrong move and like really hurt himself. I really appreciated that he didn't.
I really thought moments like that were all over the movie.
Yeah.
And I really appreciated it just because he is a younger Batman. Like we're getting to see a version of Batman that we haven't gotten to see in live action. And he's young and inexperienced and awkward and, you know, not polished and not good at everything yet. Because we were joking a while back about 007 literally being good at everything. And Batman's kind of the same way, where he's like, well, let me hack this mainframe real quick and I'll just find the answers. Where it's like, you're very much getting to see a Batman that's kind of figuring it out as he goes.
Well, and to be like the anti-James Bond, like this Batman is not cool.
No.
He's not. He's very like obsessive.
He's awkward
and eccentric. And I really like that take on Batman, because I feel like to do what he does, you have to be a little bit more obsessive.
It feels more grounded.
Yeah.
It really helps me feel grounded in the character and in the movie and in the world, because I think it's it's like you're doing subconscious math whenever you watch stuff like that. And your subconscious is telling you, for a guy like this, who's this obsessed, like always like up all night, sleeps all day kind of thing. Like he would be like awkward. Like he doesn't just go have conversations with people. The only person he talks to is Alfred. Yeah. Like that's the only person he interacts with.
Yeah. To be able to be good at as many things as he is in the movie, like you have to have zero life.
Yeah.
So I believe this guy has spent 90% of his adult life in a basement in the dark, working on like tech and building a sweet car and like learning how to investigate.
Yeah.
But another thing about this movie I really liked, and like listening to Matt Reeves, it's something I picked up on when I watched it, but I didn't exactly like have the the vocabulary. And like when he mentioned how Hitchcock was one of his influences for this movie, and specifically like Hitchcock's tendency to use point of view and like subjectivism, I was like, yes, because when the movie opens with that opening shot of like through the binoculars and it's just like this POV, I was like, oh, this is Batman staking out a scene.
Right.
It's not, it's the Riddler.
Oh,
and then that doubles back, because then later Batman is spying on Catwoman, same exact binocular shot, and it's this voyeurism, how like a subtle way where Matt Reeves is linking the Riddler with Batman and showing they're not different. They're really not.
Yeah, they're not as different as you think. And the Riddler doesn't think that they're different at all.
No.
The Riddler thinks they're doing the same, that they have the same motives. Wow, yeah, I hadn't connected that. That's really cool.
Because when the movie opened, I could have swore, I was like, oh, this is a really cool shot of like Batman like staking out a scene.
I thought so too. Yeah,
and then you're like, and then it flips on you, you're like, oh, then it feels gross.
This isn't Batman.
And that's what's great, is because when I'm thinking it's Batman, I go, this is perfectly normal and cool. And then as soon as I realize it's Riddler and I think back on it, I'm like, oh, what a creepy thing. But really,
well, and that I had the same feeling, and it primes you for later in the movie whenever he's doing that to Catwoman, because I had that feeling when he was like watching her in her apartment. I was like, oh, this Batman's like a stalker.
Yeah.
Like he's a creep. Like he's basically like he's legit just stalking someone and like watching them in their house. And that's creepy.
Yeah.
And it like primes you for that, because it almost, that opening sequence where you realize it's the Riddler, like the spying turns kind of, for lack of a better term, gross. And then it happens later in the movie and you're primed for that to feel kind of icky, as opposed to like, just Batman doing his thing. You know,
there's
just
a lot
spying
of
on people.
There's a lot of really clever comparisons Matt Reeves does without like explicitly telling the audience, and he trusts the audience to like pick up on those things.
Yeah.
And to trust point of view.
Yeah.
Like the whole car chase, every camera angle is from the car.
Yeah.
There's no like objective wide shot of the cars, maybe a few, but like he's
and they were
really,
all like hard mounts, so it was like
hard mounts,
shaky and like awesome, and
So I really appreciated, like in general, this movie is like really zoning in on Batman, or honing in on Batman, and from a filmmaking perspective, it does the same thing where you get a lot of point of view shots of like Batman gliding or in the car. You're in his tights.
Yeah.
You know, you're in his bat shoes.
Yeah.
And I really appreciated that, because, you know, on a grander scale, that's what the movie's trying to do, is like really get you in his psyche.
The more I've just watched interviews, it has really made me want to watch it again.
Yeah.
And it does feel like one of those movies, the more I think about it, it feels like one of those movies that on a second watch, it could be like really, really fun. The second watch through, kind of understanding where the story's going and being able to pick up on those subtle things. Because I do think Matt Reeves is doing those subtle things in the movie.
Yeah.
And I think it's just really hard to pick up on everything with that first watch through. So I'm excited to watch it again. I really am, because the more I think about it, the more I kind of miss the world a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just so well done with how intentional the visuals are, and the blocking and the framing. Like it, and again, we mentioned this before, but like it really eschews a lot of conventional blockbuster techniques. Like it really feels like it's an expensive movie, but it really feels like a more mid-level like movie. It really does, because there's not a ton of huge set pieces. It's not action oriented. The story isn't being driven by the action. It's very much like action is sprinkled out, and the very few action scenes we get are very much like hand-to-hand combat. Yeah. So it's very much like character driven.
It's a far cry from an 18-wheeler flipping over in the middle of a street.
Yeah. And you know, like it's just like a lot of superhero movies have like the same structure. They really do. Like you just like, and this really had like a more conventional, like Matt Reeves has mentioned, like his inspirations were like Chinatown and movies like that, where like it's a slow character driven burn, and this was that. And so like it was a little discombobulating at first to be like, oh, so like I'm not being carried set piece to set piece.
Why isn't he getting in a fight with a bad guy yet?
Yeah. But that was our spoiler review of the Batman. I think that's probably it for our Batman content for a while.
Yeah, we've beat the Batman horse to death, probably. Yeah.
2 episodes in a row. Next week, if we do what I think we're doing, we have something different in store for you.
Yeah.
And I think that's exciting. Give you a little taste of...
It's not about movies.
Yeah, I think it's time for us to dip our toes into TV because we are just as passionate about TV.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a great discussion for you next week, so stay tuned for that. In the meantime, rate us on iTunes, Spotify, follow us, subscribe to Why It's Great.
Leave a review.
Leave a review, please. I am waiting for someone to leave a review for our podcast.
Comment on this video whose top 5 list is inferior.
Yeah. Leave a comment. Let us know. Let us know what your top 5 is.
Rip me up for putting Batman and Robin in the top 5.
You know, that's respect. Honestly, like, I respect that. I really do. All right. Well, see you next time, guys.
See you next week.